You bump into someone and say sorry, even though they walked into you. You ask a question and begin with, "Sorry, quick question." You cancel plans and apologize 3 times before the conversation is even over. Someone spills their coffee, and somehow, you're the one saying sorry. You even apologize to furniture, to a door you walked into, to an object that will never know what you said. If any of that felt a little too familiar, comment, "Guilty." Because there's a reason some people say sorry far more than they need to, and it usually has very little to do with politeness. Politeness has an off switch. This doesn't. For some people, sorry isn't really a word anymore. It's a reflex, coming out before the brain has even decided whether an apology is necessary. And that's where things get interesting. Because sometimes, you're not apologizing for what you did. You're apologizing for what might happen if you don't. You're trying to prevent disappointment, conflict, or someone looking at you differently. In other words, you're not always saying, "I did something wrong." Sometimes, you're saying, "Please don't be upset with me." Those are 2 completely different messages hiding inside the same 3 letters. Psychologists often describe this kind of behavior as preemptive appeasement, an attempt to reduce tension before tension even exists. You apologize before someone can blame you, soften your request before rejection, and take responsibility before anyone has decided whether you should. The apology becomes a shield, often built long before you understood what you were protecting yourself from. Maybe you grew up in a home where someone's mood could change the entire atmosphere. A small mistake could create a reaction that felt much bigger than the mistake itself. So you learned to watch the room, read the tone, and become easy before anyone could be disappointed. You learned that being easy was safer than being difficult. And eventually, the fastest way to make yourself easy was to take the blame early. The child who says sorry before anyone asks what happened isn't necessarily weak. That child may simply have discovered a strategy. If I apologize first, maybe the anger will disappear faster. If I make myself smaller, maybe nobody will be disappointed. And when a strategy works often enough, the brain remembers it. Years later, the situation changes, but the nervous system doesn't always get the message. So now you're an adult. Someone bumps into you, and your first instinct is still, sorry. You take a sick day and feel guilty about the inconvenience. You say no to an invitation you don't want to accept, then spend the next hour wondering if you were selfish. Nobody demanded an apology, but something inside you did. That is the part most people never notice. Over-apologizing isn't only about the words you say. It can become a way of experiencing yourself. You start seeing your needs as interruptions, your boundaries as inconveniences, your emotions as problems, your presence as something that should come with an explanation. You become the easy one, the considerate one, the person who never causes trouble. People may even praise you for it. You're so understanding. You're so low maintenance. Those sound like compliments. But sometimes, underneath them, there's a person who has become extremely good at disappearing, and disappearing can look very polite from the outside. Let's pause here. Think about the last time you apologized for something that genuinely wasn't your fault. What were you actually apologizing for? The action, or the possibility that someone might be unhappy with you? That distinction matters, because when sorry becomes automatic, it can quietly change the balance in your relationships. If every boundary arrives wrapped in an apology, it can sound like the boundary itself is unreasonable. If every opinion begins with, "Sorry, but," you've already weakened your own sentence. And when a legitimate request begins with, "Sorry to bring this up," you've already framed yourself as a burden. Slowly, your sorry stops meaning, "I made a mistake." It starts meaning, "Please don't be disappointed in me." That's a much heavier thing to carry. You feel guilty for resting, needing space, not answering immediately, or choosing yourself. You may never say the word aloud, but internally, there's still a quiet voice saying, "Sorry, I need this. Sorry, I can't do that. Sorry, I'm not enough today." That invisible apology can be more exhausting than the spoken one, because it follows you everywhere. But none of this means there is something wrong with you. This habit may have made sense at some point. It may have helped you avoid conflict. It may have helped you feel accepted. The problem is that a strategy designed to keep you safe can become a habit long after the danger is gone. And there's a strange irony here. The person who apologizes the most can eventually make their real apologies mean less, because the word has been used everywhere. Sorry for being late. Sorry for asking. Sorry for crying. Sorry for needing. Sorry for existing. When every situation becomes an emergency apology, a genuine apology loses its weight. So how do you change this? Not by forcing yourself to stop saying sorry. That usually backfires. The first step is much smaller. Notice the moment before the apology. Catch the reflex. And ask yourself one question. Did I actually do something wrong? Or am I trying to prevent someone from being upset with me? Sometimes the answer will be yes. You made a mistake, hurt someone, or were unfair. Then apologize. A real apology is powerful because it means something. But if the answer is no, try leaving the space empty. Someone waited for you? Thank you for waiting. You need help. Could you help me with this? You disagree? Here's what I think. You need a boundary? I'm not comfortable with that. You don't have to place an apology in front of every honest sentence. Language can reinforce how you see yourself. Sorry for the delay places you in debt. Thank you for your patience acknowledges the other person without turning your existence into a problem. Same situation, different internal story. And this won't change in one conversation. It changes in dozens of tiny moments. The first time you ask without apologizing. The first time you say no without explaining yourself for 10 minutes. The first time someone is disappointed and you don't immediately rush to fix their feelings. The first time you make a mistake and apologize only for what was actually yours. Those moments may feel uncomfortable. Let them. Discomfort doesn't always mean you're doing something wrong. Sometimes it means you're doing something unfamiliar. If you've spent years being the easy one, the agreeable one, the person who says sorry before anyone even asks, you may have mistaken self-erasure for kindness. But kindness doesn't require you to disappear. Being considerate doesn't require constant guilt. And being a good person doesn't mean making yourself smaller so everyone else can stay comfortable. You are allowed to ask. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to need people. You are allowed to take your time. You are allowed to occupy a room without paying an apology first. Maybe the goal isn't to never say sorry again. Maybe it's to make the word meaningful again, to save it for moments that truly need repairing, instead of using it as payment for simply being human. So tell me in the comments, what is one thing you're going to stop apologizing for? And if this made you recognize a part of yourself you never had words for, subscribe to Power by Silence. Because sometimes, understanding the things you never say is the first step toward finally saying what you mean.